Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the life of one of the most legendary figures in music, film, and civil rights, Lena Horne. She was more than just a glamorous Hollywood star, she was a trailblazer who broke racial barriers and fought tirelessly for justice, all while maintaining an iconic career that spanned over 7 decades. From her early struggles as a young girl in Brooklyn to her rise in Hollywood and her fearless activism, Lena Horne's story is one of resilience, talent, and undeniable influence. So, let's get into it. 1. Childhood. Lena Mary Calhoun Horne was born on June 30, 1917, in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. Though she would later be celebrated for her beauty, talent, and activism, her early years were marked by instability and a sense of displacement. From a young age, she experienced constant movement, being placed under the care of different relatives and acquaintances. This transient lifestyle left her longing for a sense of belonging and permanence that she would struggle to find throughout her life. During her early years, she spent significant time in Brooklyn, where she was exposed to a world of activism and social consciousness. The home she was raised in was one of discipline, education, and community involvement. She attended meetings of civil rights organizations, where she listened to discussions about racial equality and social justice. These early experiences planted the seeds of awareness that would later shape her role as an activist. However, despite being surrounded by influential thinkers, she still felt a deep sense of loneliness. At the age of 5, she was sent to live in Georgia, where she was placed under the care of an uncle who was involved in higher education. This new environment exposed her to a world where Black intellectualism and progress thrived, but the racial segregation of the South also left an impression on her. She became aware of the stark contrast between what she saw in her family's social circles and the reality of systemic oppression. Her time in Georgia, though significant, did not provide her with the stability she desired, and she was eventually moved again. By the age of 12, she returned to Brooklyn, where she was enrolled in Catholic school. Later, she attended girls' high school, one of the few institutions in the city that admitted Black students. Although she showed promise, her education was cut short when she was pulled out of school to help support the household. At just 16, she took a job at the famed Cotton Club in Harlem. The club, though prestigious, was emblematic of the racial divides in entertainment. It featured Black performers but catered exclusively to white audiences. As a young chorus girl, she was thrust into a world of glamour, music, and performance, yet she also witnessed firsthand the inequalities that permeated show business. The Cotton Club became the stage where she learned to navigate the complexities of the entertainment industry. It was here that she developed her stage presence and refined her skills, performing alongside some of the most celebrated musicians of the era. Despite the challenges, the experience laid the foundation for what would later become an extraordinary career. However, the instability of her childhood, the constant moving, and the lack of a permanent home left an enduring mark on her. Throughout her life, she would describe herself as an outsider, someone who learned early on to protect herself from the unpredictability of the world around her. The sense of detachment she carried was a direct result of the instability she experienced in her youth, but it also gave her a fierce sense of independence that would define her journey in Hollywood and beyond. 2. Family. Lena Horne's family belonged to the upper middle class and had a strong educational background. Her father, Edwin Fletcher Teddy Horne Jr., was a gambler who once owned a hotel and a restaurant but struggled with financial management. Her mother, Edna Louise Scott Ron, was a Black theater actress who frequently traveled for performances, leaving little time to care for her daughter. When Lena was only 3 years old, her parents divorced, and she was primarily raised by her paternal grandparents, Cora Calhoun and Edwin Horne. Her grandmother, Cora Calhoun Horne, was a well-known civil rights activist and a founding member of the National Association of Colored Women, NACW. She introduced Lena to organizations like the NAACP and the Urban League, instilling in her a deep sense of racial pride and social awareness from an early age. Between 1927 and 1929, she lived with her uncle, Frank S. Horne, who later became an advisor to President Franklin D. Roosevelt. At the age of 12, Lena returned to New York to live with her mother and attended St. Peter Claver School in Brooklyn. However, her formal education was cut short when she left school to work at the Cotton Club, a famous nightclub in Harlem. Although Lena's family had mixed ancestry, she always identified as African American. She had a strained relationship with her mother, who later attempted to exploit her fame. After Lena achieved success, her mother re-entered her life, demanding financial support and even resorting to blackmail. In contrast, her grandmother played a crucial role in shaping her character, giving her the foundation for the activism and resilience that would define her later years. 3. Career. Lena Horne's career was a groundbreaking journey that spanned more than 7 decades, making her one of the most influential figures in American entertainment. Her work as a singer, actress, and activist paved the way for future generations of black performers, as she consistently challenged racial barriers in Hollywood and beyond. Lena's professional journey began at the age of 16 when she became a chorus girl at Harlem's famous Cotton Club in 1933. The Cotton Club was one of the most prestigious venues in New York, featuring top black entertainers such as Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway, but catering exclusively to white audiences. Performing at the Cotton Club allowed Lena to develop her skills in front of an elite audience, and it was during this time that she began to refine her stage presence and vocal style. However, despite the exposure, the club's strict racial policies meant that she was often treated as an exotic attraction rather than a respected performer. In 1938, Lena took her first steps into the film industry, appearing in the all-black musical The Duke is Tops. While the film did not receive widespread recognition, it showcased her singing abilities and set the stage for her future in Hollywood. Around this time, she also started singing at top-tier nightclubs in New York and Los Angeles, where she built a strong reputation as a jazz vocalist. A major turning point in her career came in 1942 when she signed a long-term contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, becoming the first black woman to do so. This was a historic moment, as MGM was the most powerful film studio at the time. Unlike many other black actresses, Lena was not relegated to playing stereotypical roles such as maids or slaves. Instead, she was positioned as a glamorous singer, appearing in high-profile musical films. However, the studio's treatment of her was still deeply shaped by racial discrimination. Although she starred in films like Panama Hattie, 1942, Stormy Weather, 1943, and Cabin in the Sky, 1943, Lena was never given leading roles. Instead, she often appeared in musical interludes that were filmed separately, allowing her scenes to be easily removed when movies were shown in the segregated South. This limited her opportunities for character-driven performances and prevented her from being fully integrated into Hollywood storytelling. The racial policies of the time dictated that black actresses could not share significant screen time with white actors in romantic roles, further restricting her career growth. Lena's frustrations with Hollywood led her to focus more on her career as a nightclub performer, where she had greater artistic freedom. She became one of the most sought-after singers of her time, performing in major venues across the United States, Canada, and Europe. Her residency at the Sands Hotel in Las Vegas was particularly notable, as she was one of the first black entertainers to perform in top-tier casinos and hotels that were otherwise segregated. In 1957, she released the live album Lena Horne at the Waldorf Astoria, which became the highest-selling record by a female artist in RCA Victor history. This further cemented her status as a top performer in the music industry. The following year, she broke new ground on Broadway by starring in the musical Jamaica, for which she became the first African-American woman nominated for a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical. Lena was also a frequent guest on television variety shows during the 1960s, appearing on programs hosted by Ed Sullivan, Perry Como, and Dean Martin. However, her outspokenness on racial issues often made her a controversial figure in the entertainment industry. During this time, she became deeply involved in the civil rights movement, refusing to perform for segregated audiences and taking part in the 1963 March on Washington, where she stood alongside Martin Luther King Jr. She was also involved in protests against discrimination in the armed forces and used her celebrity status to bring attention to social injustices. Her impact on Broadway reached its peak in 1981 when she debuted her one-woman show, Lena Horne, The Lady and Her Music. This autobiographical performance, which combined music with personal storytelling, ran for over 300 performances and won her a special Tony Award. The show's immense success led to a U.S. and international tour, making it one of the most celebrated Broadway revues of its time. As she moved into the later stages of her career, Lena continued to perform selectively but largely stepped away from the public eye. In 1995, she received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award, recognizing her contributions to music and entertainment. She also continued to appear on television in the 1980s and 1990s, making guest appearances on shows like The Cosby Show and Sesame Street. For scandals, Lena Horne's career was as much a fight against systemic racism as it was a pursuit of artistic excellence. Her experiences in Hollywood were shaped by racial prejudices that not only limited her opportunities but also placed her in controversial situations that fueled widespread criticism from both white and black communities. One of the earliest and most persistent controversies surrounding Lena Horne was related to her appearance. Her light complexion and European facial features led to accusations from some black Americans that she was attempting to pass as white or that she had been strategically placed in Hollywood to represent a more palatable version of blackness for white audiences. Some African Americans felt that she received preferential treatment because of her fair skin, while others accused her of trying to distance herself from her black identity. On the other hand, white Hollywood executives were also uncomfortable with her appearance, believing that she looked too white to be seen as a black actress but was still too black to be accepted as a leading lady alongside white male actors. To counter this, MGM attempted to darken her skin using special makeup, called Dark Egyptian, to make her appear more black on screen. This makeup was created specifically for her by Max Factor and was applied from head to toe, sometimes making her look unnaturally dark and muddy. It was ironic that while white Hollywood wanted to control her blackness by manipulating her skin tone, many in the black community still viewed her as an outsider. She was constantly caught between two worlds, too light for some, too dark for others. Another scandal that haunted her career was the Hollywood industry's blatant racism and whitewashing of roles meant for black actresses. One of the most infamous examples of this was when MGM gave the role of Julie Laverne in Show Boat, 1951, to white actress Ava Gardner, despite the fact that the character was written as a mixed-race woman. Horne had been considered for the part, but because of the ban on interracial romance in Hollywood films, the studio ultimately decided that it would be safer to cast Gardner in the role and simply darken her skin with makeup. This was a devastating blow to Horne, as she had long hoped to break the Hollywood mold and play roles that allowed her to be more than just a singing attraction. Gardner herself later admitted that it was unfair that she had been given the role over Lena, and the two women, who were close friends, both expressed frustration over the situation. Beyond Hollywood, Horne's political activism made her a target of government surveillance and blacklisting during the Red Scare of the 1950s. Like many other entertainers, she was investigated for possible ties to communist-affiliated organizations. This scrutiny largely stemmed from her work with the NAACP, the civil rights movement, and her outspoken opposition to racial segregation. In 1941, she performed at Café Society, New York's first integrated nightclub, and throughout World War II, she defied military regulations by refusing to sing for segregated audiences. At one performance, when she noticed that white German POWs were being seated in front of black American soldiers, she walked off the stage and performed directly in front of the black troops, forcing the German prisoners to sit behind her. This bold act of defiance made headlines, but it also led to backlash from military officials who were uncomfortable with her activism. Her association with civil rights leaders like Paul Robeson and Medgar Evers further fueled suspicion that she was a communist sympathizer. Robeson, who was himself blacklisted, had been a mentor to Horne, and her public support for him raised alarms with the FBI and the House Un-American Activities Committee, WAC. The government viewed her as a potential political threat, and her name was added to Hollywood's blacklist, significantly reducing her opportunities in film and television. This was a particularly difficult time for her, as she had to rely primarily on her nightclub performances to sustain her career. Though she was never officially charged with any crime, the mere suspicion of leftist leanings was enough to stall her career for years. 5. Civil rights activism. Lena Horne's involvement in the civil rights movement was both profound and multifaceted, reflecting her unwavering commitment to racial equality and justice. Her activism was deeply influenced by her grandmother, Cora Calhoun, a well-known activist who introduced Lena to the NAACP and other civil rights organizations. In 1941, Horne broke racial barriers by performing at Café Society, New York City's first integrated nightclub, collaborating with figures like Paul Robeson. During World War II, while entertaining troops for the USO, she refused to perform for segregated audiences or in situations where German POWs were seated ahead of black servicemen. In one notable instance, upon observing black soldiers relegated to the back while German POWs occupied front seats, Horne left the stage and performed directly in front of the black troops, positioning the POWs behind her. This act of defiance highlighted her refusal to accept the pervasive racial injustices of the time. Beyond her wartime efforts, Horne was a consistent presence in the civil rights movement. She stood alongside Medgar Evers at an NAACP rally in Jackson, Mississippi, shortly before his assassination. At the historic March on Washington in 1963, she not only performed but also delivered a speech on behalf of the NAACP, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, and the National Council of Negro Women. Her collaboration with Eleanor Roosevelt in advocating for anti-lynching legislation further underscored her dedication to systemic change. Horne's activism extended into her professional life, where she consistently challenged racial stereotypes. She refused roles that demeaned African Americans and used her platform to highlight racial injustices. Her efforts were recognized in 1983 when the NAACP awarded her the Spingarn Medal, honoring her contributions to civil rights. 6. Marriage. Lena Horne's personal life was marked by two significant marriages, each reflecting the complex interplay of race, career ambitions, and societal expectations of her time. In January 1937, at the age of 19, Horne married Louis Jordan Jones, a political operative. The couple had two children, a daughter, Gail, born on December 21, 1937, and a son, Edwin, born in 1940. Their union faced challenges, leading to a separation in 1940 and an eventual divorce in 1944. Balancing the demands of her burgeoning career with family responsibilities proved difficult, contributing to the strain on their relationship. Horne's second marriage was to Lenny Hayton, a prominent white music director and arranger at MGM. They wed in December 1947 in Paris, a decision influenced by the more liberal attitudes toward interracial marriages in Europe compared to the United States at that time. Due to prevailing racial prejudices, they kept their marriage secret for 3 years, revealing it publicly in 1950. The disclosure subjected them to criticism and hostility from both black and white communities, with the couple receiving hate mail and threats. Horne later acknowledged that her initial motivation for marrying Hayton was strategic. She believed that his position and influence in the entertainment industry could help advance her career and navigate the racial barriers she faced. Over time, however, their professional collaboration deepened into genuine affection. Despite separating in the early 1960s, they remained legally married until Hayton's death in 1971. Reflecting on their relationship, Horne stated, "I had married Hayton not because I loved him, but because he had more attrait than a black man. But as their married years went by, I learned to love him because of how good he was to me and patient." 7. Other relationships. Lena Horne's life was filled with deep friendships and high-profile romantic relationships, many of which played a pivotal role in her career and personal development. As a woman navigating the racial and gender politics of Hollywood, she found both allies and adversaries in the entertainment industry. Her relationships, both platonic and romantic, were often shaped by the discrimination she faced, as well as her pursuit of artistic and social justice. One of Lena Horne's most well-known friendships was with Ava Gardner, the glamorous Hollywood actress best known for films like The Killers and Mogambo. The two women formed a deep bond despite coming from different backgrounds. Their friendship was so intense that Ava's husband, Frank Sinatra, allegedly suspected that they were lovers. While there is no evidence that their relationship was romantic, it is clear that they shared an extraordinary closeness that transcended race and Hollywood's rigid social norms. Horne and Gardner confided in each other, supported one another through career struggles, and spent significant time together, fueling the rumors. Lena was also close to Dorothy Dandridge, the first black actress nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress. Both women faced similar racial struggles in Hollywood, often being typecast or denied meaningful roles because of their skin color. While they were occasionally compared as rivals, they actually found solace in one another, understanding the pressures of being black women in a white-dominated industry. They leaned on each other for emotional support, with Lena acting as a mentor figure at times. Another key friendship was with Judy Garland, one of Hollywood's most beloved actresses and singers. Judy, who also endured immense pressure and exploitation by the entertainment industry, connected with Lena on a deeper level beyond fame. Their bond was rooted in mutual respect and shared experiences of struggling against the rigid expectations placed on them by Hollywood executives. Both women were strong-willed yet emotionally vulnerable, and they provided emotional refuge for each other. One of the most significant relationships in Lena's life was with Billy Strayhorn, the legendary jazz composer and pianist best known for his collaborations with Duke Ellington. Strayhorn was openly gay, and Lena considered him a brother and mentor. She later admitted that if he had been heterosexual, she would have married him. Their bond was unbreakable, and Strayhorn helped shape her musical style, introducing her to a world of jazz that went beyond what Hollywood was offering her. She was devastated by his death in 1967 and often credited him as one of the greatest influences in her life. Beyond her friendships, Lena Horne was romantically linked to several high-profile men, many of whom were entertainers, athletes, and industry insiders. One of her earliest rumored affairs was with Joe Louis, the heavyweight boxing champion who was one of the most celebrated black athletes of his time. Their relationship was brief but garnered attention, as Louis was a national hero and Horne was an emerging star. Their connection was notable because both were breaking barriers in their respective fields. She also had a relationship with Orson Welles, the brilliant director and actor best known for Citizen Kane. While their romance did not last long, it was significant because Welles was one of the few Hollywood figures willing to challenge racial norms in the industry. Another important romantic connection was with Artie Shaw, a famous clarinetist and bandleader. Shaw was known for his progressive views on race and had previously been married to black actress and singer Billie Holiday, making him one of the few white musicians of his time to openly embrace interracial relationships. Despite his open-mindedness, their relationship did not last. 8. Death. Lena Horne, the legendary singer, actress, and civil rights activist, passed away on May 9, 2010, at the age of 92, due to congestive heart failure. She died at New York Presbyterian/Weill Cornell Medical Center in New York City. Her funeral was held at St. Ignatius Loyola Church on Park Avenue in New York City, where she had been a member. The service was attended by numerous luminaries from the arts and civil rights communities, including Leontine Price, Dionne Warwick, Liza Minnelli, Jesse Norman, Chita Rivera, Cicely Tyson, Diane Carroll, Leslie Uggams, Lauren Bacall, Robert Osborne, Audra McDonald, and Vanessa Williams. Following the service, her remains were cremated. Lena Horne's passing marked the end of a remarkable life that broke racial barriers and set new standards in the entertainment industry. Her legacy as a trailblazer for black artists in Hollywood and her contributions to the civil rights movement continue to inspire generations.